Rian sat in a quiet corner of the transport shuttle and watched the black sea of space through the round window. He never imagined he would leave Earth. He was not a soldier or a hero. He was an engineer who fixed old communication systems and repaired power units. His life had always been simple. When he received the message that he had been selected for a diplomatic assignment, he thought it was a mistake, but it was real. His ship was now heading toward the world of Telin, a distant planet with a silver sky and tall crystal towers. The captain of the shuttle, a tall woman named Mira, walked through the cabin and spoke in a clear voice. "We are entering Telin orbit. Prepare for landing. Keep calm and follow instructions. This is an official diplomatic visit." Rian straightened his uniform and checked his communication device. He was not a high official. He was just part of the support crew. His job was to make sure the signal between the human delegation and the Telin Royal Network stayed stable. It was not supposed to be dangerous. It was supposed to be simple. As the shuttle passed through the upper atmosphere, Rian saw the bright cities of Telon below. Long bridges, connected floating towers. Light moved across the buildings like water. Airships hovered in neat lines around a central palace. The palace was unlike anything Rian had ever seen. It looked like a living mountain of shining glass and silver stone. It seemed to breathe in the sunlight. The shuttle touched down on a smooth landing pad near the palace. A group of tall Telon guards stood waiting in bright blue armor. Their faces were calm. Their skin had a faint golden glow under the sun. Behind them stood a tall man in long white robes. He was the royal speaker of Telin. His name was Saran. He welcomed the humans with a slow, graceful bow. "Welcome to the House of Light," Saran said in a deep, gentle voice. "The king has opened his home to your people. Today is a day of peace." The human delegation stepped forward. The leader, Ambassador Rowan, returned the bow. She spoke with steady respect. "We thank the king for this honor. Humanity is grateful for your invitation." Rian stood at the back and followed the group through the shining halls of the palace. The floor was clear like glass. Light moved under it like a calm river. The walls were covered with soft patterns that glowed when they passed. Every corner smelled like fresh wind after rain. Telin did not feel like a cold alien world. It felt alive inside the grand hall. Thousands of guests gathered. Rian saw alien delegates from different stars. Some had silver eyes. Some had smooth blue skin. Some were shaped almost like humans, but taller and lighter. All wore bright clothes and jewels. Music filled the air. It was soft and clear like water falling over stone. Long tables were full of strange fruit and glowing drinks. Rian was not used to such places. He stayed close to the wall and tried not to look out of place. But even as he tried to disappear, the world around him was impossible to ignore. In the center of the hall stood a golden platform. Above it hung a wide crystal ring that shone like a second sun. On the platform stood the royal family of Telon. The king was tall and calm. His crown looked like a silver flame. Beside him stood his daughter, Princess Lyra. Lyra wore a long white robe that flowed like soft water when she moved. Her hair was bright and smooth like silk. Her eyes were clear like the early morning sky. She stood tall, but did not look proud. She looked steady, as if nothing could shake her. The crowd fell silent when she stepped forward. Rian felt something strange in his chest. Like the air had changed. The ceremony began with the royal speaker's voice echoing through the hall. Today, the Princess of Telin joins her destiny with the promise of peace. Today, the stars witness unity. The crowd raised their hands in respect. Rian copied the movement, unsure what it meant, but not wanting to stand out. The wedding was meant to unite two great star nations. It was not a love story. It was an agreement to protect peace. The princess was supposed to marry a prince from the Varlan system. The alliance would keep war away from their borders. Every guest in the hall knew the importance of this day. As the speaker continued, Rian slowly relaxed. He began to observe the details of the hall. The crystal floor reflected the guests like a mirror. The glowing lines under the surface moved with the rhythm of the music. Light flowers hung from silver chains above the platform. Their soft light painted every face with gold. It felt like standing inside a living star. A quiet voice came from behind him. "First time on Talon." Rian turned and saw a young translator from the Varlan side. She smiled kindly. "You look like someone who has never seen a royal wedding." Rian gave a small nervous laugh. "You are right. I fix machines. I don't usually get invited to palaces." She nodded. "Enjoy it while you can. Moments like this are rare." Before Rian could reply, the crowd shifted slightly as the princess stepped down from the platform. It was part of the ceremony. She walked through the guests, offering a single white flower to each royal delegate. The flower was a symbol of light. It meant peace. When a delegate accepted it, they placed a hand over their heart as a sign of respect. Rian stepped back to give space to the line of nobles. He was not supposed to be anywhere near the royal path. But as he moved, a soft, mechanical sound came from his communication device. It was a signal glitch. The main channel flickered. Rian tapped the device and frowned. If the signal dropped now, the ambassador's translation line would fail. He quickly bent down to adjust the settings. At the same time, the crowd around him moved. A noble stepped aside unexpectedly. Rian did not notice that the princess had turned toward his direction. When he stood up again, she was right in front of him. She held the white flower in her hands. Her clear blue eyes met his. The hall grew quiet for a brief second. Rian froze. He was not a delegate. He was not part of the ceremony, but she was waiting. She held the flower with calm grace. He felt every eye in the hall turn to him. He did not know their customs. On Earth, if someone offered you a flower, you accepted it to be polite. So without thinking, Rian reached out and gently took the flower from her hands. Then, remembering what the other delegates did, he placed his hand over his heart. A wave of sound rushed through the hall. The quiet turned into gasps and soft voices. The translator beside him whispered with wide eyes, "What have you done?" Rian looked at her, confused. "I just accepted the flower." She covered her mouth. "On Talon, that means you accept the union." Rian blinked. "Union? What union?" The royal speaker stepped forward with a powerful voice. "The princess has offered the flower to the chosen one. The chosen one has accepted. The bond is witnessed. The bond is sealed." The king raised his hand. His expression was not angry. It was firm, like something long decided. Lyra looked at Rian with steady calm. She did not seem surprised. It was as if she accepted this as part of her destiny. The Varlan delegates began to whisper among themselves. The prince she was supposed to marry clenched his fists, his face hard and cold. Ambassador Rowan pushed through the crowd and reached Rian. Her face was pale. "Rian, what happened?" "I just accepted a flower," he said softly. "I didn't know." The ambassador turned to the royal speaker. "This is a mistake. He is not a delegate." But the speaker shook his head slowly. "The bond of the light flower cannot be undone. The princess is chosen. The one who accepts becomes her partner under the stars." Yet the hall buzzed like a storm. Some guests cheered. Some looked shocked. Rian's heart pounded in his chest. He could not move. He felt as if the floor had vanished under his feet. Lyra stepped closer and stood beside him. She looked at him not with fear, not with anger, but with a strange, calm strength. The king spoke for the first time. His voice filled the entire room. "The stars have witnessed. The bond is true. The human stands as the chosen partner of the princess." Rian tried to speak, but no sound came out. He was an engineer who came here to fix communication lines. He was not supposed to stand in front of an alien king. He was not supposed to be part of a royal wedding. But now every eye in the hall saw him not as a guest, but as the husband. Chosen by the princess, the ceremony continued, but everything felt distant. The music rose again. The lights grew brighter. Rian stood on the platform beside Lyra. She spoke to him softly, her voice steady. "Do not fear. Talon honors its bonds. You are safe." He swallowed hard. "I did not mean to do this." "I know," she said. "But the stars have chosen their path, and now you walk it with me." Rian looked out at the sea of faces. He saw confusion, shock, anger, and joy. He saw the Varlin prince standing at the edge of the hall, his eyes like cold stone. He saw the ambassador talking fast with the royal speaker. He saw Myra, the captain of the human shuttle, watching from the back with her hand on her head. He had only come here to do a small job. Now he was at the center of a storm. He was standing beside a princess he barely knew. He was part of a royal bond that could not be undone. His life had changed in a single heartbeat. As the ceremony reached its end, the royal banner of Tellin was raised high. 2 rings of light appeared in the air above them. The crowd placed their hands over their hearts. Lyra lifted her hands slowly. Rian hesitated, but then did the same. The rings of light merged, creating a single bright line. The hall echoed with the final words of the speaker. The stars have seen. The bond is sealed. A new chapter begins. Rian did not sleep that night. The palace was quiet, but his mind was full of noise. The events of the wedding ceremony kept playing in his head again and again. He had come as a support engineer. He had not come to stand beside a princess. He had not come to wear a royal sash or hold a flower that meant marriage on this world. Yet everything had changed in one moment. His room was large and shining. The walls were made of smooth white stone with soft blue light flowing through them. The bed was wide and soft. The air smelled like fresh rain. But none of it brought him comfort. He sat on the edge of the bed, with the white flower still resting in his hands. On Earth, this would have been a simple decoration. Here, it was a symbol that tied him to a royal house. He heard a soft sound outside the door. A guard in blue armor stood there. His face was calm, but his voice was firm. The royal speaker wishes to meet you in the morning. He will explain the bond and your position. Rian nodded slowly. I understand. The guard gave a short bow and stepped away. Rian leaned back against the wall and stared at the ceiling. He felt like the world had pulled him into a story he did not belong to. He thought about the princess. She had not looked angry. She had not even looked surprised. She had stood with quiet strength and accepted him as if it had been written in the stars. That calm look in her eyes kept returning to him. When morning came, dressed in the soft white robe the palace servants had left for him, it felt strange on his skin. He walked through the hallways with a palace escort. Every step echoed softly on the crystal floor. Light moved under the surface like clear water. The air inside the palace was warm and gentle. The royal speaker, Saran, waited for him in a bright chamber filled with long silver banners. The king and princess were not present. Only Saran and 2 guards stood there. He turned with a calm smile. Good morning, Rian of Earth. You must have many questions. Rian gave a tired nod. I have too many. Saran walked closer. Yesterday you accepted the light flower from Princess Lyra. On Telon, this means you accepted a royal bond. This bond is strong and cannot be broken by ordinary means. It is more than marriage. It is a connection between 2 souls in the eyes of the stars. It joins not just 2 people, but 2 houses. Rian took a slow breath. I did not know. I thought it was a greeting. I understand, Saran said gently. But our law does not care if the act was planned or not. The bond has been witnessed by thousands. It is sealed in the royal archive. Even the king cannot undo it without great cost. Rian's hands tightened at his sides. So I am trapped? Saran shook his head. Not trapped, chosen. The princess accepted the bond. That means she trusts it. You now hold the position of royal partner. You are to stay in the palace and learn our ways. You will stand beside the princess in official matters. You will share her protection and her duty. Rian tried to speak, but no words came. He had lived a simple life. He had fixed machines and wires. Now they were talking about royal duty and star bonds. It felt unreal. Saran placed a hand over his heart, the Tellan gesture of respect. The king wishes to speak with you later today. But for now, the princess has asked to meet you in the garden. Rian followed the palace escort through long halls and shining bridges. The garden lay at the top of a wide terrace. The sky above Tellan was silver and bright. The air was fresh. Tall crystal trees grew around a soft blue pond. Birds with clear wings flew between the branches. Flowers glowed softly in the sunlight. It was beautiful in a way Rian had never seen before. Princess Lyra stood near the pond in a long white robe. Her hair moved gently in the wind. She turned when she heard his steps. Her clear eyes watched him carefully. She spoke first. "I thought you might not come." Rian stopped a few steps away from her. "I did not want to be rude." She smiled faintly. "Rude is not what they call it here. Some would say it was wise to run, but you did not run." Rian sighed. "I do not even understand what I am supposed to do. I came here to fix a signal. Now they call me your partner." Lyra walked slowly toward the pond. "I know this is not what you planned, but you must understand something. I am not angry with you. You did not break a rule. You followed your own customs. And by doing so, you walked into ours." She touched the surface of the pond with her fingertips. Small ripples spread across the water. "In our tradition, the light flower is sacred. It is given only once. When it is accepted, it cannot be taken back. Many think the stars guide that moment. I believe this too." Brienne looked at the flower still held in his hand. He had carried it without thinking. "I never asked for this. And yet it has found you," Lyra said softly. "That means something. Maybe to me. Maybe to Talon. Maybe to you one day." Her calmness surprised him. She was not afraid or cold. She was steady, as if she had been trained all her life to accept the unexpected. She turned to him again. "The king will speak to you. He will not harm you. He respects the bond. But there are others who will not accept it easily. This bond was supposed to unite Talon and Varlin. Now it unites Talon and Earth. That is not what the other side wanted." Rian understood what she meant. He had seen the face of the Varlin prince, cold and sharp. He had seen the whispers in the crowd. "He was not supposed to be here. Does that mean they will come after me?" "They may not attack you directly," Lyra said, "but they will not be pleased. And displeasure from a rival house can bring danger." A group of guards appeared at the edge of the garden. Behind them came King Solon, tall and calm. His silver crown caught the sunlight. His presence carried quiet strength. Rian straightened himself without knowing why. The king stopped in front of him and looked him in the eyes. "Rian of Earth, you have stepped into a bond that shapes the path of worlds. You did not plan it, yet it has happened. I will not undo what the stars have seen. But I will not let you stand here lost either. You will learn our world. You will train. You will earn your place." Rian bowed his head slightly. "I do not wish to disrespect your people. I want to understand." "It is good," the king said. "The bond will make you part of our court. You will live here. You will have a guide. You will learn our customs and our language. You will be protected. But protection is not enough. You must also learn to protect." Rian felt a quiet weight settle on his chest. This was no game. The king stepped closer. "The Varlin house will not stay silent. They have lost a political union that they valued. Their pride will not accept this easily. You must stand strong beside my daughter. She has accepted the bond. She has chosen to trust the stars. You must learn to be worthy of that trust." Lyra lowered her head slightly in respect to her father. Rian followed her example. The king looked at him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "I do not care if you are born on Talon or Earth. Strength is not in blood. It is in heart. Do not forget this." With those words, the king turned and left with the guards. Lyra walked closer to Rian. She spoke softly. "He does not say things lightly. When he speaks of strength, he speaks of honor." Rian stared at the pond. "I have no training. I fix wires and machines. I am not made for this." Lyra looked at him without a smile but without pity. "Neither was I when I was a child, but I learned. You will learn too. The palace will assign you a mentor, and you will not stand alone. You have me." The afternoon passed as Rian was taken to different parts of the palace. He was introduced to his new quarters near the royal wing. The rooms were larger than anything he had seen before. A guard explained the daily schedule of royal partners. He would have to study language, history, law, and defense. He would train with instructors. He would attend royal meetings. It felt overwhelming. When night fell, he stood on the balcony and looked at the silver sky. Flying ships moved between towers. Lights danced like stars close to the ground. He thought about Earth, about his small workshop, about the quiet life he had lost. He had never asked to be part of a royal house, but the world had decided otherwise. A soft sound came from behind him. Lyra stepped onto the balcony. She wore a light cloak over her robe. Her hair shone faintly in the moonlight. She stood beside him without speaking for a while. Then she said, "Do you regret it?" Rian did not answer right away. He watched the stars above the palace. "I do not even know what it is to regret yet. Everything is happening too fast." She nodded slowly. "It happened fast for me too. I was told since childhood that I would marry someone from Varlin. I knew my future would not be my own. But the stars chose you. That is not something I expected either." Rian turned to her. "You do not seem afraid." "I am afraid," she said softly. "But I am also ready. I have spent my whole life preparing for duty. It does not matter who stands beside me. The bond means we face what comes together. That is what Tellen believes." For the first time since the wedding, Rian felt a small warmth in his chest. It was not comfort, but something close to understanding. She was not a distant royal figure. She was someone who had grown up inside duty, just like he had grown up inside his quiet work. They were different, but both had not chosen the path fully. Lyra looked up at the stars. "There is a saying on Tellen, the stars choose their lines, but we must walk them with strength. You may not believe in it yet, but you will see." The wind moved softly across the balcony. The city below shone like a sea of light. Rian. The sound of the palace alarm woke Rian before the sun touched the silver sky. A sharp red light moved through the walls like a warning wave. The quiet palace he had walked through the night before was now full of rushing steps and urgent voices. Guards ran through the corridors in blue and gold armor. Their boots echoed against the shining floor. Rian opened his door and stepped out, still half awake, and saw Captain Mira at the end of the hall. She had arrived with the human team early that morning. She looked serious, Rian. She said firmly, "Come with me now." He followed without asking questions. His heart was already beating fast. The soft, warm light of the palace had turned cold and sharp. They entered the main hall, where the king, Lyra, and the royal speaker stood around a large circular table made of glowing silver. A map of space above Tellen floated in the air like a living image. Around the planet were several dark red points that slowly moved closer. The king's voice was calm but strong. "The Varlin fleet has entered the outer orbit," Sran added. "They claim this is only a visit, but we know why they are here." Lyra stood beside the king with her hands folded in front of her. She was not shaking. She looked ready, as if she had been trained for this moment all her life. Her calm eyes moved over the map, then stopped on the closest red mark. They will not leave without answers. They lost their alliance in front of every star delegate. Their prince was humiliated in front of thousands. They will not accept this quietly. Rian looked at the map with growing unease. He did not need to be a soldier to understand what he was seeing. The red points were warships. Their shape and size were far larger than any ship Rian had ever worked on. He had seen images of the Varlin fleet in news feeds. They were known for their fast engines and sharp weapons. Now they were here. Mira stepped forward. "The human delegation is still on Tellen. If this turns into a battle, we are not ready for evacuation." The king lifted his hand. "They will not attack first. They need a reason. They will use the bond between my daughter and the human to force our hand. They will try to shame us, or they will try to take him." Every eye in the room turned to Rian. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on his chest. He had not asked for any of this. But the Varlin fleet was not here for Tellen alone. They were here because of him. Lyra stepped closer to him. Her voice was steady. "They will demand the bond be broken. But it cannot be broken. Not without great loss. If we refuse, they may use force. If we agree, they will weaken the throne." Rian swallowed hard. "I do not want anyone to get hurt because of me." She shook her head. This is not just about you. This is about power. You became part of something larger when you accepted that flower. Now the bond is a shield and a spark at the same time. What happens here will shape more than one world. The royal speaker touched the map and expanded the view. A single golden point appeared near the edge of the red formation. They are sending a royal envoy. A shuttle from the Varland flagship will arrive in 2 hours. They wish to speak in person. The king gave a short nod. We will meet them in the Hall of Stars. Lyra will stand with the human. This is a royal bond. We must show unity. Rian had never felt so far from his old life. 2 days ago, he had been an engineer working with quiet machines. Now, in 2 hours, he would stand in front of alien leaders who saw him as a problem. He could not fight them. He could not negotiate like a trained ambassador. All he had was the bond and the strength he had yet to understand. After the council meeting, Lyra led Rian through a long hall that opened to a training ground. It was hidden behind the palace walls. The air was cool. Blue flags hung along the edge. Several guards practiced with light staffs and energy shields. Their movements were fast and precise. Lyra handed him a small training blade. Rian looked down at it with confusion. I do not know how to use this. You must learn something, she said. You do not need to be a warrior. But you must stand straight when the Varland envoy arrives. They will test your strength. Not with a weapon, but with your courage. Rian held the blade awkwardly while one of the palace guards showed him how to stand and hold it properly. His movements were slow at first. He tripped once, and the guard caught him before he fell. But slowly, step by step, he began to find a rhythm. He was not graceful, but he was steady. Lyra watched without interrupting. Her eyes were calm, like she trusted that he would find his way. When the sun reached the highest point in the silver sky, the palace alarm gave a softer sound. The Varland shuttle was entering the royal landing bay. The Hall of Stars was prepared. Golden banners of Tellin hung from the high ceiling. The floor shone like a mirror. Hundreds of guests and soldiers lined the walls. The human delegation stood near the back. The Varland envoy entered with slow, heavy steps. 4 guards in black armor surrounded a tall man in dark red robes. His eyes were cold and sharp like steel. His name was Lord Varric, uncle of the Varland prince. He had a reputation for being clever and dangerous. He walked with the calm of someone who believed the room already belonged to him. The king sat on the throne at the end of the hall. Lyra stood beside Rian. Her presence was steady like stone. Rian wore the royal partner robe, which felt strange but powerful at the same time. He stood with his hands behind his back and tried not to let the fear show on his face. Lord Varric stopped in the center of the hall. He gave a slow, formal bow, then raised his voice so every corner of the hall could hear. King Solon of Talon, I bring greetings from Varland, but I also bring questions. Serious questions. The king spoke with calm strength. Speak your questions. Lord Varric's cold eyes turned to Rian. 2 nights ago, my nephew stood ready to join his bloodline with yours, a bond that would have united our 2 worlds. But then, this human stepped forward and took the light flower. A bond was sealed. A ceremony was broken. Varland was humiliated in front of the stars. Whispers moved through the hall like soft wind. Lord Varric's voice grew sharper. We demand the bond be broken. The human must step away. If he does not, then Varland will see this as an insult that cannot be ignored. The king leaned forward slightly. You know our law? The bond of the light flower cannot be broken without loss. You know this as well as I do. It was witnessed. It is sealed. Lord Varric lifted his chin. Then you choose war. And if war comes, it will not only be between Tellin and Varland. Others will take sides. Blood will follow light. The tension in the hall thickened like a storm. Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was clear and strong. I offered the light flower. He accepted. This was not a trick. It was the will of the stars. I accept him as my partner. If you attack him, you attack me. If you shame him, you shame Talon. Rian looked at her and saw no fear in her eyes. She stood like a wall of light. Her voice cut through the hall with calm power. Lord Varric's gaze turned to Rian again. Then let the human speak for himself. Does he claim the bond? Does he have the strength to stand beside the Princess of Tellin? Or is he only a shadow hiding behind her name? Rian felt the weight of the moment pressed down on his shoulders. Every soldier, every guest, every delegate, they all waited for his words. His throat felt dry, but he forced himself to lift his head and look straight at the Varlin envoy. I did not plan to stand here, he said slowly, his voice steady. I came from Earth as a worker, not as a ruler. But the bond happened, and I accepted it. I did not run. I am here now. I will not break what I have accepted. If you see me as weak, that is your choice. But I will not step back. The hall grew silent. No one moved. Lord Varric gave a thin smile, one without warmth. Then let the stars judge strength. He signaled to one of his guards. A tall Varlin warrior stepped forward, holding a long silver staff. It was not a weapon for killing. It was a ceremonial staff used to test new bonds. If Rian refused, the envoy would call him a coward. If he accepted and failed, they would call him unworthy. Lyra looked at him. Her eyes gave no orders, only trust. Rian took a breath, stepped forward, and accepted the training blade from a guard. The floor of the hall opened slightly, forming a small, clear circle. The Varlin warrior spun the staff in one hand. His movements were sharp and quick. Rian held the blade tightly and moved into the stance he had practiced earlier. The match began. The first strike came fast. Rian barely blocked it. The sound of the two weapons meeting echoed through the hall. His arms shook from the force. The second strike was harder. He stepped back and almost lost his balance. The crowd whispered, expecting him to fall. But he did not. He remembered the guard's words during training. Do not fight for power. Stand for your ground. He focused on staying steady. He blocked again and again. His movements were not graceful, but they were strong. He did not fall. The Varlin warrior tried to push him down with a heavy strike. Rian turned slightly and used the weight of the blow to move aside. For a brief moment, he saw surprise in the warrior's eyes. The match grew faster. The air filled with the sound of metal striking metal. When the final strike came, Rian held his ground and pushed back with all his strength. The two weapons locked in the center of the ring. The warrior's strength was greater, but Rian's grip was firm. He did not step back. Finally, the warrior lowered his staff and gave a short nod. It was a sign of respect. The hall filled with low voices. Lord Varric's face remained hard, but even he could not. The palace felt different after the envoy left. The golden halls that once carried soft music now held the quiet weight of waiting. Every guard and every servant moved with purpose. No one laughed. No one spoke without reason. It was the kind of silence that came before a storm. Rian walked through the long corridor with Lyra beside him. Their steps echoed against the shining floor like soft drum beats. The Varlin fleet still floated above Tellon. From the royal balcony, their ships looked like sharp red stars in the silver sky. They had not attacked, but they had not left either. It was a clear message. They were waiting. The king held council again that evening. The round table in the council chamber glowed brighter than usual. The map showed the red points of the Varlin fleet and the golden light of Talon's defense line. Rian stood quietly behind Lyra as the royal speaker shared the newest report. Their main flagship has extended a silent net around the orbit. They are cutting trade signals and scanning our shield, the speaker said. Mira crossed her arms. This is the same pattern they used before the fall of North. If they choose to strike, they will do it fast. The king remained calm. Then we will not give them that chance. We will be ready. And we will hold our bond with honor. Rian watched their faces. These people had grown up in a world where war and peace were decided in the same breath. He had lived a quiet life before. He had worked with machines, not politics. But now, every choice he made mattered. The bond he carried was a part of this storm. Lyra spoke clearly. They will not stop with threats. Varric will search for a way to weaken us from the inside. He will not only use ships, he will use fear. She was right. That night whispers spread across the palace. Some guests from other worlds feared the bond between Rian and Lyra would bring war. Some thought he should leave Tellin for the good of the world. Others believed Varlin would never dare to attack Tellin openly. No one agreed. And this doubt slowly moved through the palace like cold wind. Rian walked through the gardens later that night. He needed air. The silver flowers around the fountain shined softly under the moonlight. He sat on the edge of the fountain and closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about Earth. He thought about the life he had left behind. A small workshop, a few friends, simple problems. No fleets in the sky, no thrones, no powerful names like Varric pointing at him. He opened his eyes and saw someone walking toward him. It was an old man with long white hair and a soft robe. He had seen him before near the ceremony hall, but had never spoken to him. The man moved with quiet steps. "You carry the light flower bond," the man said gently. "Yes," Rian answered. "Do you know what it means?" "I know it cannot be broken. And I know others want me to step away." The man smiled slightly. "That is the surface. The bond is not just a promise. It is power. Real power. You are not here by accident. The light flower does not choose without reason. There is something inside you that you do not yet see." Rian frowned. "I am just a worker from Earth. I do not have power." The man walked closer. "Power does not always live in the hands. Sometimes it lives in the heart. The bond between you and the princess is more than ceremony. It is a gate. If opened, it can protect this world in ways no weapon can." Rian stared at him, unsure what to say. The man continued. "But a bond is only as strong as the will of those who hold it. You must accept not only the bond, but the role it brings. When the storm comes, the bond will answer to your heart." Before Rian could ask more, the man slowly walked away and disappeared into the shadows of the garden. Rian stood still for a long time, his mind full of questions. Who was that man? How did he know about the bond? The next morning, the air over Tellin grew heavy. The red ships began to move in new formation. The defense alarms flashed across the capital. The fleet was surrounding the main shield line. It was not yet an attack, but it was a dangerous step closer. The king gathered the High Council in the Hall of Stars. Lyra and Rian stood beside him. Mira brought the human team to the hall as well. Everyone's face showed the same thought. The first strike might come at any moment. A message came from the Varlin flagship. It was short. "If the human does not leave Tellin by the next sunrise, we will consider the bond a declaration of war."
Oh.
The room filled with tense voices. One of the delegates from another world stood up. "We cannot let Tellin be dragged into war over a single human," another shouted. "Breaking the bond is not possible. If he leaves, the princess will suffer the loss. It will weaken the throne." Mira stepped forward. "He cannot leave. Even if he wants to, the bond will not let him. If Varlin attacks, then Earth will not stand aside either. This will become larger than Talon." The king raised his hand to calm the voices. "We will not break our word. We will not send him away like a prisoner. We will prepare our defense. But we must also be wise." After the council ended, Lyra led Rian to a high balcony at the top of the palace tower. From there, they could see the glowing shield that protected the capital. Beyond it, the red lights of the Varlin fleet moved slowly like hungry shadows. Lyra spoke softly. "If you want to run, this is your last chance. No one would blame you." Rian looked at the sky. "I do not want to run. I am afraid, but I will not run." "Not anymore." Lyra turned to him. For a moment, her royal mask softened. She was not just a princess. She was a person standing beside him. "Then we face this together." At night, Rian could not sleep. The words of the old man from the garden moved through his mind again and again. The bond is power, a gate, a will. He left his room quietly and walked back to the royal garden. The moonlight was clear. The fountain shined softly. He placed his hand on the glowing flower mark on his wrist. The air around him grew warm. A thin line of golden light appeared from the mark and floated up like a thread. He did not understand it, but he felt it. It was like the bond was listening to him. A soft voice echoed in his mind. It was not from outside. It came from the bond itself. Protect, stand, unite. The golden thread slowly grew stronger. It wrapped around his hand, then disappeared inside him. A soft warmth filled his chest. He felt stronger than before. The next morning, the sun rose behind the silver clouds. The Varlin fleet moved closer. The sky above Tellin turned red. The alarm rang across the capital. The shield line began to shake as the enemy ships pushed their pressure field against it. The king stood at the front of the palace with his generals. Lyra stood beside Rian in ceremonial armor. Myra and the human guards stood behind them. Lord Varric's voice came through the communication screen above the palace gate. Last chance. Send him to us, and no blood will fall. Refuse, and Tellin will burn. The king's voice was steady. We do not surrender our people. Varric's cold eyes narrowed. Then you choose war. The first wave of energy from the Varlin fleet struck the shield. The ground shook. The sky flashed red. The people inside the capital held each other as the sound of the strike roared through. City. The defense systems of Tellin activated at once. Blue beams rose from the towers. The shield glowed brighter. The soldiers moved into position. The battle had begun. Rian felt the bond in his wrist grow warm again. It was stronger than before. He could hear a soft pulse in his ears, like a heartbeat that was not his own. Lyra grabbed his hand. Their bond light joined together in a single golden line that rose high into the air. The golden light spread out like a wave and touched the shield. The shaking of the shield slowed. The blue light of Tellin mixed with the gold of the bond. It grew brighter. The enemy's pressure began to push back. The generals looked at the glowing shield with wide eyes. The shield is stabilizing. The bond is feeding it energy. Lyra looked at Rian. It listens to us. We can hold the line. Rian closed his eyes and focused on the warmth inside him. It spread from his chest to his hands, then into the golden light. He thought of the people he had seen in the city. The workers, the children playing in the gardens. He thought of the guards who trained him. He thought of Lyra. The golden light grew stronger. The shield began to push back against the Varlin pressure. Lord Varric's ship increased its power. The sky turned brighter red. But the shield did not break. It held. The people of Tellin saw the golden light and began to cheer. Soldiers raised their weapons higher. Hope moved through the city like wind through fire. Lyra's voice was steady. We do not break. Not today. Rian felt sweat on his face. The energy moving through him was not simple. It was powerful and heavy. But he did not let go. He held on, the bond answered. The king gave the command to strike back. The defense fleet of Tellin moved out from the lower orbit. Blue beams of light shot across the sky. The battle spread across the stars. Mira led the human defense team to support the palace shield generators. Every corner of the city worked together. No one stood alone. The Varlin fleet realized the shield was not falling. Lord Varric's voice came again, sharper than before. This is not possible. But it was happening. The bond between Rian and Lyra had created a golden current that flowed through the entire shield. It was not a weapon. It was strength born from unity. As the battle stretched through the day, the Varlin fleet failed to break the shield. Their formation began to pull back. For the first time since their arrival, the red ships looked less like hunters and more like shadows trying to escape the light. The people of Tellin filled the streets, shouting with hope. The enemy had not won. The bond had held. The twin suns of Terith rose slowly over the horizon, casting gold and silver light across the royal city. The towers of crystal and metal reflected the morning glow, making the city shine like a world made of light. Rian stood on the high balcony of the royal palace, watching as the people below began their day. He could see the Terethi banners waving gently in the soft wind. They carried both the Terethi crest and the new symbol he had helped design, a circle divided in half, showing both human and Terethi unity. It had been many months since the strange wedding that had tied his life to Princess Alara's. What started as confusion and fear had slowly turned into understanding and partnership. Rian had grown to respect the Terethi way of life. They valued peace, but also believed deeply in strength and courage. They were a people of light and honor, and now they accepted a human among them as part of their royal family. Alara entered the balcony quietly and stood beside him. Her long white robe flowed with soft light that shimmered under the suns. Her eyes, silver and calm, looked over the city as well. Rian turned to her and smiled. "The city looks peaceful," he said. Alara nodded. "It is because of you. Many feared humans when they first came here. They thought your kind wanted only to take and rule. But now they see a human who saved our people during the storm. You have changed hearts, Rian." Rian shook his head. "I only did what anyone should do. I could not let those creatures die in the storm." Lara smiled faintly. "Yes, but sometimes one small act can change 1,000 minds." They stood silently for a moment. The wind carried the sound of laughter from the streets below. Children played near the fountains, and merchants opened their stalls. The city was alive with color and sound. It was a sight Rian never grew tired of. Later that day, Rian attended a council meeting with the king and the royal advisors. The large room was filled with glowing pillars and floating display screens that showed maps of trade routes and communication lines between Tereth and human space. The king sat at the center, wearing his gold crest that marked his authority. He greeted Rian warmly as he entered. "Rian, our friend," said the king, "your people have agreed to the joint trade network. Supplies and knowledge will flow freely between us. This is a new age for both our worlds." Rian bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I am sure both sides will grow stronger together." One of the older advisors, a tall Terethi with deep green skin, spoke in a cautious tone. "There are still some among our people who do not trust humans. They say the stars remember the wars of the past. They fear that peace will not last." Rian looked at the advisor with calm eyes. "Fear is natural. My people fear many things too. But trust is built, not given. Every day we must show that peace is worth more than war." The king nodded with pride. "Wise words. You speak like a true leader, Rian." After the meeting, Alara found Rian walking through the palace gardens. The gardens were full of glowing plants that hummed softly with energy. The air smelled fresh, like morning rain. She walked beside him and said, "My father is pleased with your speech." "The council listens to you now," Rian smiled. "I am still learning their ways. Sometimes I feel I do not belong, even after all these months." "You belong more than you think," Alara replied gently. "When I was a child, I was told a story about a light that came from beyond the sky. The old teacher said that one day a traveler from the stars would bring balance to our world. Many thought it was only a legend. But now, they look at you and remember those words." Rian looked at her with surprise. "You think I am that traveler?" Alara looked at the glowing flowers before answering. "I think you are someone who listens, someone who tries to understand. That is what our world needed." Rian did not know what to say. He had never seen himself as anything special. He was just a human explorer who had made a mistake at a wedding. Yet now he stood as a symbol of peace between two worlds. It felt heavy, but also right. Days passed, and preparations began for the first joint space mission between humans and Terethi. A new starship was being built, called Unity Dawn. It was made using both human and Terethi technology. The ship would travel to new systems beyond both civilizations. Showing that cooperation could lead to great discoveries, Rian was asked to lead the mission with Lara beside him as diplomatic representative. At first, he hesitated. Leaving Tereth meant leaving the home he had come to love. But Alara encouraged him. "This is what we have worked for," she said. "If our people are to truly unite, they must see us go together into the stars." The launch day arrived under bright twin suns. The people gathered near the spaceport, cheering as the shining ship stood ready. Its hull glowed with human steel and Terethi crystal. The king stood before the crowd and spoke with pride. Today, we send our hope into the stars. Once, our worlds were strangers. Now, we walk together. Let the unity dawn be a light that guides all who seek peace. Rian and Alara stepped forward together. The people cheered louder, waving banners that showed the symbol of unity. As they entered the ship, Rian looked around the command deck. Human engineers and Terethi pilots worked side by side. It was a sight that filled his heart with pride. When the countdown began, he felt Ilara's hand rest gently on his arm. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Rian nodded. "Ready to see what waits out there?" The engines came alive with a deep hum, and the ship rose into the sky. The city below grew smaller until it was a shining jewel against the blue. The stars opened before them, endless and bright. As the Unity Dawn left Tereth's orbit, Rian sat in the command chair. The communication screen showed both human and Terethi stations celebrating the successful launch. He could see the joy on their faces. It was more than just a mission. It was proof that old fears could end, and new hopes could begin. Alara stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the stars. "When I was young," she said, "I dreamed of flying beyond our world. But I never thought I would do it with someone from another species." Rian smiled. "I never thought I would marry a princess from another planet either." Alara laughed softly. "Then it seems the stars enjoy surprising us." The journey took them across distant systems where they met other trading colonies and shared knowledge. Each world they visited welcomed them with wonder. They saw how humans and Terethi working together made technology stronger and trade fairer. Slowly, stories spread about the human who became royal and the princess who trusted him. Those stories inspired peace talks even on other worlds that had once been rivals. One night, during a quiet moment on the ship, Rian looked out the viewing window. The stars stretched endlessly, glowing with gentle light. Ilara joined him, her eyes reflecting the stars. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked. "Sometimes," Rian said. "But I think what I missed most from Earth was meaning. I found it here." Alara looked at him with soft warmth. "Meaning is not found in places. It is found in hearts that choose peace." He nodded. "Then maybe that is why I was sent here." After many months of travel, the Unity Dawn returned to Tereth. The people welcomed them as heroes. The king himself came forward and placed his hand on Rian's shoulder. "You have done more than any warrior could. You have given us a future." Rian bowed respectfully. "I did not do it alone. Alara was my guide. Without her, I would have been lost." Lara smiled as the crowd cheered again. That night, the palace held a great celebration. Lights filled the air, and music played through the halls. Rian watched the people dance humans and Terethi together, and felt something peaceful grow inside him. Later, when the night grew quiet, he and Alara stood once more on the same balcony where it all began. The stars above were brighter than ever. Ilara looked at him and said, "Do you remember when you said you felt you did not belong here?" Rian nodded. "I remember. You belong now," she said softly. "You have given our world new hope. And you have given me a reason to believe that peace is possible." They stood side by side, watching the stars. The city below glowed like a sea of light, and in that moment, Rian felt the weight of his strange destiny lift. He was no longer the lost human who had made a mistake at a wedding. He was a bridge between worlds, a friend to two peoples, and a man who had learned that the universe could change through kindness and courage as the twin suns began to rise. Again over Tereth, Rian looked toward the sky and whispered softly, "Maybe this was always meant to happen." Ilara smiled beside him. "The stars have their plans," she said, "and sometimes they choose the right hearts to carry them." And so the human who had once stumbled into a royal wedding became the man who united two civilizations. His name was remembered not as a hero of war, but as a builder of peace. His story was told across the stars. The story of Rian and Alara, the two souls who showed that even in a vast galaxy, hope can begin with one unexpected meeting.